Okay, well, it's 7 o'clock and nobody had to fight traffic. So let's get started. Is anybody getting feedback besides me? Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm Nancy Defford. I'm the Executive Director for PEN, the Pasadena Education Network. And I want to welcome you to what is our first day of PEN's virtual programs. And I'm imagining that we will be having many more of them during this school year. Before we get started, I want to introduce Laura Diaz, who is our Parent Engagement Director. Laura has an announcement to make.
Sí, buenas tardes. Si hay alguien aquí que ocupe traducción al español, por favor bajen hasta donde vean un globito y ahí tienen que marcar que quieren en español, en Spanish. Y ahí van a escuchar en español. Muchas gracias.
Okay, so before actually we get started, I do want to give a big thank you and shout out to the PUSD staff who has spent this entire day with us. This is our fourth program today. We started this morning at 9 o'clock with parents who have incoming kindergarten students. So if you think you're stressed about high school, just imagine if you had a 5-year-old who was starting school for the first time. So as you probably know, PEN is a network of more than 1,800 parents who send our children to Pasadena schools and support the PUSD. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is separate from the school district. So if you learn anything tonight, we hope you'll consider going to our website. And if you're not already a member, signing up for a free membership. And that you'll also consider making a donation so that we can continue to provide programs to parents throughout the school year. We know that this year is a challenging time for all families. We hope this session helps you and answers some of your questions and gives you a better idea of what school will look like when it starts on August 17th with 100% remote learning. Tonight, we will only be talking about remote learning if and when PUSD enters stage 3 and starts looking at adding the hybrid model. I expect that we will have a program to explain that to you. During this meeting, PUSD staff will do a presentation. Part of that presentation is based on the questions that you provided to us when you registered. At the end, Susan Schwartz, our program director, will ask some of the most common questions, and we will also open the chat so that you can type in other questions. If we don't get to everything, or if you think of something afterwards, please feel free to email any one of us, and as we will be posting answers to questions after this meeting. I want to thank Collaborate Pasadena and Jeff Albert again for hosting this program tonight, and remind our speakers once again that because we do have simultaneous translation, to please be thoughtful about how quickly you are speaking and try to slow it down a little bit. And now I'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Elizabeth Blanco, who's the Chief Academic Officer for PUSD.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. We are going to share the information as we know it today. We were able to post our public guidebook on our website today, and it will also have a link on the PEN website and the Collaborate website. So some of your questions that might not be answered in the presentation, you may find the answers there, and your principals will also be communicating with you as well. So our goal is to make sure that all of our students and staff are safe. We are opening with phases in the same way the health department is recommending phases, for the city and for the county. So phase 1 is still very high risk. We don't see the numbers that are necessary at the hospitals and the disease rate to return to school. So learning is remote in a distance learning model. In phase 2, the risk is medium, but learning is still remote in a distance learning model We may bring back some students, some childcare, students who are having a more difficult time accessing their education through remote learning and distance learning would be a priority. And then in phase 3, when it's low risk, our schools will reopen in the hybrid model where there would probably be about 50% of the population on the campus. And our principals will work really hard on multiple models to look at the best way to give all children equity and access, and make sure they're all able to learn when we're in any of these models. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Reynoso, who is our Assistant Super of Instructional Services, and Mrs. Helen Hill, who is our Director of Curriculum, to talk a little bit about the structures and content.
Julie, you're still mute.
Well, that was not good. I have not muted myself in a long time. Maybe that's a sign. Hopefully not. Thank you, Helen. I'm so glad you're always here to take care of me. Well, I will start all over again. For those of you who don't know how to read lips, I wanted to welcome everyone to our evening presentation regarding 9th through 12th graders. I want to give my gratitude to this team here at PUSD, but thank you for the platform through Penn and Collaborate Pasadena. And a shout out to all of our parents who are here tonight to think about what else can you do to make sure that your 9th through 12th grader is successful. As I'm going to jump over a couple of slides just because we're going to be focusing on our 9th through 12th graders, but they are very similar to our structures with our 6th through 8th. So that's why it says 6th through 12th. I am joined here tonight with, I believe, 2 of my colleagues, Mr. Robert Hernandez, principal at Pasadena High School, and Mr. Brian Stanley, who is our principal at Rose City Model Continuation. I believe Dr. Gray will be joining us shortly. They have all participated in the development of many, many structures that are here, and Dr. Gray is here. I'm so glad. Thank you, Dr. Gray.
I'm here.
Yay! All right, thank you, sir. All right, so I'm going to begin, and although we may not be able to answer every single one of the questions you may have, as Nancy has pointed out and as Susan will share shortly, if there are any additional questions that you have that we just don't get to tonight, we will make sure that we do every effort to provide this to you in a timely manner. And please just note, as we get information, we provide it to you. So this is, kind of a moving target as we go through all of this. As Nancy mentioned, tonight we're really just going to be focusing on phase 1 and 2. And that means that this is a distance or remote learning situation for our students, which means that this is a situation for you as well. I am also not only a PUSD employee, but I'm a proud mom of 3 10th graders this year. So I know exactly how this feels, what we need to do, and I hope to provide some enlightenment and support for the work that we're doing. So we are modeling the work that we're going to be doing after SB 98, which is a law that came out. We are providing 300 instructional minutes over the course of 5 days. We feel this is a valuable way in which to engage our high schoolers. One of the mechanisms in which part of this development of this particular way in which we were working with our students is because we talked with our students. We found out that, taking 6 periods every single day was quite a heavy load for them. And so we really made sure that when we designed a new structure for this coming year, we reimagined what this could mean for our students and for our staff. So every day, Monday through Friday, our students are going to engage in daily live synchronous instructions. Although it says cohorts activated, don't mind that. It's an error on my part. So the cohorts that we will talk about will actually be in phase 3. So please, my apologies on that. The reason for what I'm going to share with you is because we kept the learner in mind. These young scholars that come to us, they are our priority each and every single day. So we decided to build a structure where the students would participate in all of their courses over the period of 2 days. And I'm going to share with you a bit more detail in just a moment. For MIR, that means 8 courses over a couple of days. They have a different schedule, and we wanted to honor the schedules and structures that we currently had in place as best as possible so that students, when they transitioned to phase 3, truly felt like they were experiencing their school day and that they had a comprehensive approach to their learning, and that it was as consistent as possible from start to transition. We will talk a little bit about what Monday looks like. Monday does differ from Tuesday through Friday. In our 9th through 12th graders, in correspondence and reaction to basically the Senator's legislation, our high schoolers can no longer start school any earlier than 8:30. I'm not sure if everyone was aware of that. And we are taking it upon ourselves to enact that as we move into this transitional time. So I wanted to give just a brief overview. Many of you probably have heard about what we're doing, but for those of you who haven't, I really wanted to draw your attention to the fact of what your child would be traveling through given the course of a week. And Mrs. Hill is going to then provide what the children will be engaging in when they're traveling through their period. So you'll hear a little bit about that in just a moment when we tag team. So for example, as you see here, on our Mondays, our students will be participating in both synchronous and asynchronous. That means both with live sessions as well as opportunity for the teachers to give students time to work collaboratively or work on a project and attend to the tasks and goals of the class. This Monday is also secured for teacher planning, for teacher professional development. We are asking our teachers to lift like no other year. I can't even imagine. When I think back 25 years ago when I was a teacher, this is no comparison, that we are asking them to do so much, and we're so proud of the work that they do and the support that they get from administration. So we know that Monday will look a little bit different, but as we move into the week, your child will travel through periods 1, 2, and 3 on a Tuesday or a Thursday. And then they will travel through the other courses on a Wednesday and a Friday. And this we are doing to maximize the amount of time that we can have with our students and our teachers before we would activate our cohorts, which would be in phase 3. Now, how much time will my child spend in a given period? Great question. So although you don't see any times listed here, that will be forthcoming, and we are in negotiations with our labor partners right now to make sure that the times in which we are suggesting and providing for both students and teacher is approved, and it is welcomed to make sure that both learning and participating and engagement is really prime and thoughtful to the process. As I mentioned, these sessions will be composed of 2 things: live sessions with the teacher, as well as personalized learning time. Our periods we are proposing at this time, or suggesting, are going to be approximately 80 minutes long. They're only going to 3 of their courses. So we found that this time would give plenty of opportunity for students and teachers to engage in meaningful time. And then we set aside the time where teachers could also split their classes up or split up their courses. As you know, in high school, our teachers carry a hefty load, over 150 kids at some cases. And we really felt that when we thought about every single learner, every single child that we serve on a daily basis, we needed to make sure that these structures met their needs. Whether they are an English language learner, whether they are an AP student, whether they are traveling through an academy, whether they are a part of a signature programs, we really wanted to make sure that there was an optimal way in which they could engage in their courses. So this way made the most sense. One of the areas that you'll see pointed out here in our suggested structure is something called advisory. Not every single one of our sites has advisory, but we are proposing that if you had it in the 1920 and you found it to be of great value, then we would like for you to continue with that in the 2020-21 school year. If you did not have that, then we find other ways in which to participate in advisory. And I can have one of our principals in just a moment share what one of the components of advisory could mean to them. And then, as you can see, we've built the day as if your child is traveling through their school day. They have nutrition, they need a break. They have a passing period. This is an opportunity to gear up and be prepared as they walk into their next course or their next period. Then we have lunch. They need to eat. I know that one of the things I'm looking forward to with my children is really setting up what their day is going to look like. I know I need to sit down and take a break, and so do they. So I will be their lunch table buddy, and that'll be a great way to find out what's going on in their day. You know, what are the successes and what are some of their barriers? And it's a great way to engage with my child that I never would have when they were at school and eating with all their friends. Although I'm not maybe their best friend, it's an opportunity to keep them engaged and to keep them talking. And I want to make sure that you create those social interactions, if you can, the best you can. And even if it's not every day, to find those ways to do that. So I'd like to invite any one of our principals, if Dr. Gray or Mr. Hernandez or Mr. Stanley wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits that they see with this type of structure that's coming in the 2020-21 school year.
So for Mirror, we will still have our seminar class, which is part of our early college magnet grant, which works on having our students talk about college resources. And we will have that for all of our students last year. So for us, it was really important to keep that time frame for our magnet grant and for giving students opportunity to hear more about and learn more about different colleges.
It's fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Gray. All right, well, as you can hear from that example or testimony, that we really are trying to mirror the best we possibly can to keep students engaged and feel that they are part of whatever family they are a part of this coming year. One of the areas that I wanted to point out too is, will your child have some one-on-one time with your teacher? There'll probably be opportunities where there can be one-on-one, some differentiation, some individualization. Most likely there'll be some small groups, and there'll be opportunities which we're so excited about in both Canvas and in our WebEx, where our teachers can engage in office hours, where they can still explore the things they used to offer when they were with their students in a face-to-face. They can still do this even virtually. So we're really excited for some of these enhancements and the differences between the spring and this opening of this year. I also wanted to point out that one of the things that'll be different and that we will you'll hearing from my colleague, both Mrs. Hill and Dr. Sahaki, is the importance of attendance and engagement, as well as their participation. So we ask that as much as you possibly can, be sure that you are a viable candidate on our parent portal system. If you are, we're so grateful. Please make sure that you explore every opportunity that we have offered through that. I know that I find great value in having really engaging conversations with my children and helping them set themselves up. You know, why is Noah missing an assignment? What happened to a particular grade on a test? You know, what could we do? How could we go in and have a conversation with our teacher and not as a point of contention or punishment. So I want to make sure that when we do these types of things, it keeps you engaged. If you're not involved in that, please make sure you do, because it will be the only way that you'll be able to see what's going on in that particular venue. A couple other things just to note before I move on or invite any of the principals to partake in these conversations is the importance of social relationships. Although the students are not with one another, we do find that it is imperative that they stay connected in really safe ways. That would be a decision that we would ask that as a family you look at what that could mean. How would you get people to hang out? Although we're going to do everything we possibly can in an academic setting, we know sometimes our students need more, especially through 9th through 12th graders. I know it and I see it on a daily basis with my own 3 children. I also want to just mention that, like I said, there are synchronous and asynchronous. And that I wanted just to point out, and I don't know if Lawton, Dr. Gray or Mr. Hernandez or Mr. Stanley wanted to share a little bit about physical education on your campus and how these students might participate in that during their day, because there is a requirement, a graduation requirement of that. Have you guys given any thought to how that might be meaningful for our students?
Yeah, hi. So Brian Stanley, Rose City High School.
Hi, Mr. Stanley.
We're actually purchasing, I forgot what they're called, but you know, like the rubber bands first to give out to students when we're able to. And so they can use those at home, and then we'll do live sessions with our PE teachers where students will work out from their house. It'll be fun.
I want to join that class. That sounds great. That sounds great. I also wanted just to share that we're working with PEF with a partnership with LA 84 to think about all the different types of equipment, just as Mr. Stanley pointed out, that we can equip our students to be successful at home if they don't have the supplies to do so. All right. I'm going to, Mr. Hernandez, did you want to say anything, or Dr. Gray, did you want to jump on that?
Yeah. So we'll also be working with, oh, go ahead, Mr. Hernandez. No.
Go ahead, you're good.
Okay. We'll also be doing a lot of things online. So teachers will be saying, like, having a log for students to track what they're doing and having the honesty policy for our students. So therefore, we know they'll be tracking and being honest about the work they're doing online.
Thank you.
Yeah, so very similar to what Dr. Gray and Mr. Stanley said. So teachers conducting live lessons, also putting workouts available. We've also talked about, we haven't yet decided on, but kind of along the same lines of the honest policy, there are a number of free apps and a number of different, electronic devices that kids are using now. So we're trying to look at something similar to that to kind of, help students kind of develop healthy habits and keep track of their activity.
Thank you all. That's great. So as you can see, we are committed to every part of how a scholar will travel through PUSD, even virtually. This is important to us. Our children are our most important venture when we think about all the work that we do, and making sure that down to even physical education, our students will be healthy in mind and in body. So we want to make sure that that is something that you don't need to worry about. And I just want to point out, if your families are involved in athletics, CIF has put out guidelines. PUSD is also has built a athletics handbook, and more information about that will come out. But at this point in time, that is on hold until a bit later, after fall into the winter session. But we are excited that if and when we are able to go back, that we will actually be able to bring our athletes back and have not just conditioning, but to have some competition. So we're excited about that because we know that we have students that serve in that capacity as well. And finally, before I turn it over to Mrs. Hill, what would be all of this if the students weren't equipped with what they needed? So we have built a textbook, device, and supplies distribution procedure. This procedure is in alignment with the protocols that have been established for both local and county measures. We, as the Pasadena Unified School District, are following City of Pasadena's curbside protocol. And we want to make sure that our TK through 12th grade students are equipped with textbooks, Chromebooks, and anything that's related to a device, as well as supplies. We've been working with many, many departments, including our different vendors. They're putting together bags of supplies for students so that when they come to pick up their items, they can walk away and have tools. We're working with our warehouse to ensure that all and every piece of textbook, anything that we have ordered, will be at the school sites to be delivered. Please note that each site will be providing a strategic communication regarding these distributions. There will be staggered schedules, dates, and times. Should you fall into a situation where you could not arrive at the 3:30 time, that's okay. Call Mr. Stanley or call your principal and say, I'm not able to make it at that time. We will make accommodations, but please note that we have to follow strict guidelines. So we will have to offer you a different date and time because we have protocols and procedures we do have to follow. And at this time, I just want to wrap up by saying that if any families are new to PUSD, we will be equipping you with a Chromebook and a charger. Should you know of any family, or you may be a family that is in need of a replacement or troubleshooting and or a hotspot so that you have access, we will be providing all of that information so that you can contact us and we will equip you with what you need. We are looking forward to the school year. Our students are our #1 goal, and I'm so excited to see what will happen this year. We've learned so much. We've learned a lot from all of you, and we've learned so much from our students and our staff. Thank you so much for this time, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mrs. Hill, as she dives in a little bit deeper about what your children will experience throughout the day.
Thank you, Dr. Reynoso. Even though we've done this 3 times earlier today, it is different every time, speaking to a different grade span. And certainly I understand that the specific needs of high school students are different than our middle and elementary kids. So I want to make sure that I touch on those specifically. But in general, and actually I see some familiar names and faces from our earlier presentation. So I do apologize that it'll be a little bit of repeat, but we'll definitely get to some high school specific details. I wanted to share that really what's happening during the school day within that great structure that Julie was able to share with you is a lot of different aspects that you did not see in emergency remote learning in the spring. Over the weekend, we were able to publish for our teachers a distance learning handbook that was written specifically for PUSD. It is a very lengthy document, but it's something that our teachers have been going through to really get a handle on not only what is sort of required and what learning will look like this year, but also how to do it well. Our focus really has to be not just on providing instruction, but on doing it in an online environment that is more feasible for students to take into account. You know, obviously one of the things that you heard the principals and Dr. Reynoso mention is the feedback that we got from students and families in high school saying that with the volume of how much work and content high school students have to do, doing 6 classes every day online was just really difficult and not realistic for focus and attention span and workload. And that's why we were very intentional about saying no more than 3 in a day and providing some break time. I shouldn't say break, but some personalized learning time in between so that students can kind of shift gears and transition into some more independent time as well. So those are sort of the aspects that teachers are going to see through this distance learning handbook, that we're really talking about how can we take instruction not as something that is about task lists or providing many assignments to students, but something that is more about the engagement around the learning outcomes and more engagement and interaction around topics and knowledge pieces. So one thing that is really a big benefit for us is that the state and the public health departments have produced guidelines which are creating consistency not just for our schools in PUSD, but for school districts all across the state. So one of the big benefits is that we are no longer questioning, are we doing the right thing? Is this what we're supposed to do? But rather saying, okay, we have a known knowledge now of certain things that must happen because they are found to be good for students, and we will figure out how to do that within PUSD. So one of the biggest differences that you're going to see is more live interaction. And that is definitely something that we heard feedback from you as well as from many of our teachers that was a struggle in the spring. But with the preparation time that we've had, we are able to make sure that certain things are going to be standard and possible with the schedule that's been provided. So with that, I did want to really let you know that the focus of the training that we're doing with our teachers has a lot to do with the focus on instruction and feedback versus assignments and testing. I know that's a very big concern in high school because a lot of what students are expected to do in high school is complete assignments and perform on tests. Now, those are definitely things that teachers would incorporate into their instruction, but when we're in an online environment, we're really focusing more on what is the progress that the student is making. Is the teacher in touch with how the student is doing, knowledgeable about what they need for instruction, and able to provide that feedback to both the student and possibly the family so that the student can perform better or well. Versus having a checklist of assignments that they just complete and there might not necessarily be feedback or understanding of where it's connected. So we're definitely working on a more holistic look. The other aspect that I wanted to bring you to is the next item in our distance learning handbook, which is the Canvas checklist. So as if you are a returning PUSD parent, you know that last semester we used a learning management system called Power School Learning. So we are no longer with that particular system. We have moved to Canvas. It provides a more robust online experience. And additionally, it has a more robust parent aspect. Definitely, I think I should congratulate you for making it this far and having a high schooler. I know that there have been some trying times with our kids as they age, but I think that we've reached a point now where many of our high school families have said, "Hey, my student is very independent," and that's a wonderful thing, and that's definitely something that you want to honor, respect, and capitalize on. But still, there is a need for us as parents to know, how are they doing? Are there deadlines coming up? You know, I have a space cadet in my family and I like to stay on top of him. But, you know, I also have a very responsible one in my family who doesn't necessarily need that. Well, Canvas provides a parent account that is much more comprehensive than what we could have provided in any other learning management system. So it would work for you with whatever personality your child might have. So if you have the ability to do so now, your principals may have already sent you some information, but information will be coming out on how to create that account. I think Susan typically puts the information in the chat, and you can download the app now. I did it for my own children, but you will need to wait to get a pairing code from either your child's teacher or with your high schoolers. They can go into their Canvas account once it's active and give you the code as well. What you can do is you can see their assignments. You can see their deadlines and upcoming due dates, and you can communicate with the teacher. Now, one thing that I would have to say is, have a little patience. Canvas is new to everyone. It's new to our teachers as well as our students and you. But it has some great communication features for the teacher to set up. They just might need a couple weeks to do that. And then you can always rely on the teacher email as the first mode of communication. But over time, you may see people shifting to the full communication on Canvas, which would be easier for you to manage as well. The final thing I wanted to say about instruction before we move into the next section is that the emphasis right now with our teachers is that in the first couple weeks, we utilize something called a launch period. This is something that has been pretty familiar to our teachers, particularly our literacy English teachers, but also our K-8 teachers. And we're now going to be moving into this in high school, where the first couple weeks are really spent around community building, establishing the routines, procedures, community agreements for a productive learning space as the year goes on. So they will be getting into some content, but just know that in those first couple weeks, it will really be about getting to know your teachers, getting to know the students, and understanding where they left off in the spring. All right, so now I'll shift to what the teachers are actually going to do with content on the next slide. So one of the biggest questions we have, especially with older students, is, well, they had a little bit of unfinished learning last spring. What if my student is behind? A really big point to make that we've talked about at previous board meetings and other parent forums is this idea of acceleration over remediation. That if we ensure that we are teaching grade level standards, but create an environment where any learning gaps can be addressed immediately, then students will be able to ramp upward onto their current grade level expectations. And that's how the scope and sequences for the upcoming school year have been designed. We have pulled out essential standards and essential topics so that they are in common for all teachers. So you don't have an English 9th grade teacher over at PHS doing something that an English 9th grade teacher over at Rose City would be doing. These are consistent essential standards for all 9th graders. And that is how teachers are going to plan. So the PUSD curriculum is alive and well and very much put into alignment with our current situation. But that leads me to the instructional resources piece. As you heard Dr. Reynoso mention, we obviously will be still utilizing our core adoptions and materials. These are familiar to students. They are familiar to our teachers in planning, and they will be the bulk of what the students use, especially because in high school, you have the need for college credits. You have the need for graduation requirements to be met for all of their courses. And so we are maintaining fidelity to all of that now, but we know we're doing it in an online environment. And one of the big tools that we decided to provide for our teachers was a way for them to have lessons and activities that were really well made for an online environment to be provided. Because as you know, our current resources were built for in-person interaction. And while we have some wonderful teachers who are able to turn that into an online setting quite easily, the majority of teachers do not have that kind of ease of use of technology. So a big investment that PUSD has generously made for our teachers and students is to purchase the K-12 content series from ASU Prep Digital. This is different than their online school, but to provide you some context, ASU Prep Digital is an online academy that's been in operation for many years. They have begun providing districts with their content because it's been created for an online environment, which makes it so much easier for a teacher trying to get through a lot of content to figure out how to do this without just making it a bunch of worksheets. And so and the other benefit is that the content series is already available in Canvas. So teachers are not spending time recreating modules. They are simply pulling modules as they fit into their curriculum, and then making sure that it matches in alignment with what the learning goals are. So hopefully what you'll see is a better prepared classroom, less anxiety, and more understanding for your teachers and your students. So the final piece that I wanted to talk about is assessment, because here is where we will need a lot of partnership from you. As can be predicted, a big concern that we have as students return in the school year is, where did they leave off when we finished in May? Because of some of the inconsistencies with learning styles and attendance and et cetera, we may have kids in varying levels of knowledge and skill. So it's very important to us. We will be issuing some diagnostic assessments at the start of the school year, and then also doing some assessments as we progress through the school year to check on their progress. These assessments are meant for the teacher to plan their instruction. So these are not exams that are going to be used for placement or grading. These are all for instructional purposes. And so one of the examples that I provided in an earlier meeting is that, my son is, I don't think he was meaning to be duplicitous, but he came and asked me for some help on a math problem. And me, being a former math teacher who got kind of excited that he actually thought I could help him, because normally he doesn't think I know anything, I was more than happy to explain to him how to do this particular concept. And lo and behold, he got it right. He was excited, told me he got 100% on this quiz, which I then said, oh, no, wait, I shouldn't have helped you on a quiz. That's actually going to give your teacher the wrong impression. And sure enough, the teacher thought that he should be in a higher level than he would be in his small group. And I said, no, we need to scale that back. He still needs instruction on this. And I diverted, otherwise the instruction would have been left to me, and that wouldn't be fair either. So what it really came to help me understand was that our students, in every action they take on a test or an assessment, are delivering information for the teacher, so that the teacher can do their best job in figuring out what it is that they still need to work on with your student, or what can they move on from. And in this particular case, I did not want her to move on from this particular content or topic. And so when you're having your students take some online assessments, make sure that they understand that it's to help the teacher understand where they need to be learning, and therefore how the teacher can plan instruction best for them. We are actually working on a parent training series with our parent university, with the vendor who's providing some of our online assessments, that will just talk about sort of ways that a parent can support at home with assessment without, over leading or over influencing. Now, I do say that knowing that high school students typically are more independent with their assessments, so that might not be a concern of yours, but I wanted to put it out there since you will be seeing some assessments online, which we haven't really done in the past. All right, so with that, oh, you know what? I will hand it over to supports, but I think this is a good segue to supports, because I forgot about it at middle school and had to throw it in at the end. But I wanted to share with you another really amazing thing. And I want to thank Dr. Blanco for all of her advocacy to get this. But PUSD for this year is partnering with a company called Paper. Paper is an educational support service whose mission is equity of access to skilled tutors for all students. So one of the biggest questions we have for high school students is, based on the complexity of the content, sometimes parents, like myself, can't really engage in supporting the student as well as we want to. And then many times, parents don't have the means or the time to find someone who can help their student. And so Paper provides a digital tutor that is accessible 24/7 to your student. It's going to be an app that is added to your student's Clever dashboard. Just as an FYI, it won't be activated until September, when the bulk of the content gets going. And we will be doing a launch week at the school, so the kids will get familiar with that. But it's a service that we're going to be able to provide for this year to make sure that outside of, as Dr. Reynoso, the 150 mentioned, 150 kids on each teacher's roster or more, they might not be able to give the individual attention that a student needs at just the right time that they need it. And so we have an additional support in this tutoring service that can help. In addition, beyond just digital tutoring for all subjects, they also provide an essay editing service with students. The tutors are trained in the Socratic method, so they will not provide answers to your kids. They'll lead them with questions and try to help them come to the understanding on their own. So it's definitely something that we want you to look for when it gets dropped into your students' dashboard. And they also have tutoring services in Spanish if that's a need for your student or for the family as they call in. So with that, other supports, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Ruelas.
Thank you, Helen. It's great to hear about that paper. I'm like writing down everything that I'm listening in regards to that. So that's awesome. I think that the more support reinforcement that we have for our students is going to be wonderful. Good evening. My name is Juan Relis with the Language Assessment Development Department. Together with a great team in my department, we oversee the English learner programs, including a collaborative team effort with Helen and her CIPD team of overseeing the dual language immersion. We also handle translation and interpretation for the district. To assist and support schools and your students succeed in attaining language proficiency, whether it's in English or it's in their target language, our department works closely with schools to ensure they have all the necessary tools so that targeted and intentional support is delivered, whether it's ELD for our English learners or if it's dual language for our DLIP students. Also from our department, I could tell you that before, during, and even after the school year, we support schools in providing valuable student data to facilitate targeted support at the school sites, as well as organize various professional development opportunities in both ELD and dual language immersion. Our professional development consists of strategies that are very effective for the classroom, and these are all going to be adapted in distance learning as well. Additional supportive reinforcements that we provide our schools is in the form of access to supplemental resource through applications that we have online. These are going to be embedded into a teacher's and your child's Canvas page. And we also are still going to move forward with an effective support that we provide our schools, and that is tutoring. I mean, it's great to hear that Paper is going to be assisting in that regard, but we also want to build a relationship with the students and their school sites by hopefully having 1 to 2 staff members per site that can provide after-school tutoring, mentorship, and relationship building. Our department also is supporting all the schools, parents, and meetings that are taking place with translation and interpretation. And that's pretty much everything I have to share. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Eric Sahakian, who's our Assistant Superintendent in Child Welfare, Attendance, and Safety.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to Collaborate as well as Penn for this platform for our parents. Appreciate that. I will begin with mental health supports. As we start the new school year, we will be providing mental health services, and they will be delivered remotely by our Masters of Social Work interns. That will continue. Students that currently have a case managed will continue in the fall with their mental health agency. Our team will also provide staff development to school sites on signs and symptoms of possible mental health issues related to students, what teachers should look out for during their virtual class sessions, and where and how to refer students. The link to an online referral is posted on our website for Child Welfare, Attendance and Safety, as well as School Support Services Department. Once a referral is placed and approved, the mental health agency contacts a parent and caregiver, and an intake is then initiated. We're also working with the Parent Engagement Office to hold a parent forum prior to the reopening of schools to discuss trauma experienced during these unprecedented times and provide parents tools on how to address student anxieties, worries, and so forth. More tools such as short psychoeducational videos have been developed by our MSW interns as well as my social work team in order to go ahead and provide some techniques such as relaxation techniques, deep breathing exercises, and effective coping strategies for both our students and parents and anybody who wants to utilize these videos to their advantage. I'd like to talk about our vulnerable populations, foster youth, and our McKinney-Vento identified students and families. For foster youth supports and services, our Foster Youth Star Resource Center program will continue with their virtual weekly meetings with identified students in order to lend support, share upcoming information and school updates, as well as sharing community resources. Our foster youth counselor, he is specifically geared towards providing specialized supports to our 10th, 11th, and 12th grade foster students. He makes those connections through phone calls, emails, as well as webinars. Triage meetings for newly enrolled foster youth students will continue on a weekly basis, and that is held weekly with our foster youth community partners as well as staff from Child Welfare, Attendance and Safety. Our McKinney-Vento homeless education supports will continue through the Families in Transition Office. A district-wide McKinney-Vento count has been ongoing in order to correctly identify and case manage services for our families via teleconferencing. Immediate needs of support, such as basic needs and necessities, are being conducted through partnerships such as Salvation Army. Online McKinney-Vento education presentations for staff, administrators, and the community are in the works to be posted onto our webpage. Also, in addition, I'd like to mention that our Office of Child Welfare, Attendance and Safety, the PBIS team, Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports team, will be scheduling one-on-one site virtual visits with the PBIS teams at each high school in order to help support and mobilize and tailor the school site's universal interventions as we return back in the fall. Julie did mention, finally, for my part, Julie did mention attendance and participation. Per Senate Bill 98, all LEAs are required to track and monitor attendance as well as participation. And what that means, attendance for 6th through 12th grade will be taken daily and in each period for students on a daily basis. Attendance methods for distance learning days may include a daily assignment on the learning management system, Canvas, an email correspondence with the teacher, Google form submission, or visual check-in by teacher as well as by student. Again, daily documentation may include participation in online activities, completion of regular assignments, and as well as contact between teachers, students, parents, and guardians. And finally, students that are not participating / attending, regular types of check-in will be maintained by the Child Welfare Attendance and Safety Office in order to get students back on track and re-engage in participating onto the learning management system. Thank you. That concludes my part. With that said, I will turn it over to Dr. Villegas, Associate Superintendent of Specialized Student Supports.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, my name is Marco Villegas, and yes, I'm Associate Superintendent of Specialized Student Support. And we mainly oversee the students with IEPs in our district. And so our students with IEPs are going to really benefit from everything that's been said today. All of the pieces, all the structures that have been put in place are going to really allow our students with special needs to have some additional support that will provide the additional learning that they need. In addition to that, our special education teachers will be reaching out. Those will be the case carriers will be reaching out to the parents and the various specialized teachers to create a remote learning plan within the first couple of weeks of the school year in order for them to provide a very specific plan. As we know, the IEP provides some very specific learning goals, and so we're going to be working closely with the parents and the specialized teachers to provide the appropriate goals for the students and to design a very specialized type of learning program for the students. One thing that's also going to be an additional piece is we're going to have the instructional assistants that they're going to have access to Chromebooks, and they're going to be able to provide additional instruction to our students and provide specific interventions throughout their day that will be designed as part of the remote learning plan. And so part of that will also include that we'll have some training for not only the parents, but the teachers to continue to have the annual IEPs, and so that we will have those virtually. And we're looking at how we can continue to have the assessments that are also impending. So that will be part of the work that will be happening during this time frame. We'll be looking at developing a system so that we can begin the assessment process for our students. As Dr. Blanco indicated at the beginning of the presentation, you know, we have the phase 1 and phase 2, and hopefully in phase 2, we're hoping to bring in some of the most neediest students to a different location, perhaps, so that we can provide face-to-face instruction. But that's something that we're working on, and we're hoping that will be something that we can work. Additionally, part of the survey that has gone out to our parents with special needs, it talked about some need for some support at home with some training. And so we're looking at having some training sessions with some of our behavior people, some of the BCBAs, to be able to support the additional learning at home, so that our parents are better equipped as well to support the instruction. And so that's all for the special education for today. One note is that we will be having a more complex and in-depth special education meeting on August 11th, where we're going to really get down and talk about all the specifics related to special education and how we're going to approach the IEP process, and we'll be able to introduce the entire special education department at that time.
All right, thank you so much. And we'll get information about meetings like that. This is the meeting you just mentioned was on August 11th is a meeting for parents to learn about this, or?
It will be a meeting for, specifically special education parents. They will be receiving information about this, and certainly we'll share it with you so that it can be shared out to parents in various different ways.
Great, thank you so much. I've just want to thank all the staff for their presentations. We are getting close to the hour, but what we're doing now is we're going to go ahead and open up the chat box so that if parents have questions they want to type in there, we'll get to as many as we can right now, and then we'll do follow-up. As was mentioned earlier, we'll follow up and share the Q&A as well as this recording with parents later. One thing I just want to do to start things off, there was a question that that came up earlier in some of our other programs, which was, will classes be recorded for later viewing in case a student has to miss synchronous learning? And then we also had a question about how college counseling will work and how students will be prepared for applying to colleges.
Susan, I can take the question on the recordings. We are asking that teachers record their live sessions because we do understand, you know, there are times when students might not be able to make it on. But, you know, like the state and the governor's statement, we hope that students can get on live with us. We do think that that's interaction that's important, but we will make sure for access purposes that there is a recording. We also have teachers who have volunteered to do asynchronous videos that are shorter mini lessons to provide for their students, maybe in a flipped learning model that students can also access. And as Dr. Sahakian confirmed earlier, attendance can be a combination of being on a live meeting as well as work completion. So even if a student can't get on during a live, they won't be penalized, and we will have a backup for them.
Okay. Do you want to?
Susan, I can.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
sure. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say I can speak to the college counseling. I don't know if but.
Yep.
So, I mean, we really plan on offering the same counseling services, albeit kind of virtually. So we'll continue working. I know that's one of our goals at the beginning of the year, is to start reaching out to our senior families to provide more information. In addition to that, working with College Access Plan to help students and families start preparing to fill out the FAFSA, start looking at schools for next year. So we have all intention right now of still continuing that, and a lot of the programs, a lot of the things that we've offered, of course, doing it remotely right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, along the same line at Mirror, we are actually, the counselor, taking appointments with Google Forms with the students, making sure they have all the credits required. Students are making requests for letter of recommendations. So it's status quo. Nothing's changing in terms of the support we're providing from the counselors to get students into colleges.
Great. There was a couple of quick questions that just came in the chat. One was about grades. It may not be a quick question, but what will be the grading policy? There was also a question about arts electives. So
I can take the grades.
Yes.
We will be restoring our grading policy. The grading policy did take a bit of a change in our emergency remote learning in the spring, but our grading policy will be re-engaged as we begin school. So we expect every student to come prepared and to participate and to ask questions. And we expect our teachers to be thoughtful to that process and expect the same of themselves and their students. In the terms of the arts and the electives, I didn't know if one of the principals wanted to share their thoughts.
I can speak to that. So I know our ChemEd, teachers are preparing materials, and I've also been in communication with our art teacher as well. So that's something that I think campus by campus, just kind of assessing what students may need to complete, and then working to order supplies and then hopefully distribute them when we distribute textbooks and materials.
Great. Dr. Gray, did you want to add anything on the arts electives or other electives?
Mr. Hernandez asked that question perfectly.
Okay, great. Are there still plans for a zero period, such as marching band?
Yeah, yes. So we still have marching band on our schedule. When the students will be able to perform and practice, that'll be up to the health department. But that is something that the students will be doing in terms of online, individually at their own pace. But we will still have band, and hopefully if we're able to get back in January, that'll be something we'll be able to have for our students to participate in.
Okay, thank you. What about, so we have another question about lab classes, science classes. How does something like that get conducted online?
So that's similar. We, at the district level, our arts coordinator and our STEM specialists are all working on those kind of specific needs. We do have a science resource center, and Dr. Marqueso, our STEM specialist, is actually, she's been physically there this week, trying to pack out the supplies and work with the science teachers. We do have to admit that at the high school level, some of the labs are not necessarily safe for students to do at home. And so, I'm just being honest, especially in chemistry. So, so we do want to make the caveat that we know that while we're remote, the lab schedule won't be normal. We probably will have to modify and do those labs when we return in person. If the length of time persists, Dr. Marqueso actually meets on a very regular basis with all the high school science teachers. And they're working on solutions together. So everyone's going to do it in the same manner. We have some sort of at-home pseudo labs that the students can do in our STEM Scopes system, but they're not, you know, replicating what you could do in a true lab. But we may end up doing the pseudo labs while we're remote, and then providing the most important labs when we come back.
Okay, Nancy or Laura, did you see any other questions in the chat that you wanted to put out there?
How will students be able to engage with each other and with their parents in a meaningful way?
So students will be able to be online. We're looking at ways where teachers can have groups, maybe study groups together with the students, but breakout sessions together within each of the classrooms that they have set up in WebEx. So there'll be a lot of ways for students to interact with each other online and collaborate.
How about student schedules? When will they get their schedules? What's the process for them getting it? How will that work?
They'll get their schedules, we hope, in the probably next week sometime. We're going through data confirmation in PUSD, so there's a couple of steps that have to happen before that. And then once those are released, it helps us, it's basically like a domino. So once that's ready, then we know which books to make sure are available, and then that allows for when the schools will do their distributions. But we should know next week. That is our hope, that we would know prior to that, because we really would like to have, and Helen, if you want to jump on this one, is really making sure that our teachers have been able to load in their students to class and start preparing for their own launch.
Sorry,
I just want to say parent portal is really important, so make sure that's really primarily where you'll get it.
Yep, and that's exactly what I was going to say. So the only addition is just make sure your parent portal account is active. We did have to, just so you know, because I ran into this problem last week, you have to update your password. Everyone got that email, so that you can actually get your students live schedule. They are not yet up, so but they will be up prior to the school year starting, obviously. So there's that. I did want to answer a question quickly, since I was typing it to Heather. Paper is free of charge to the parents. We are picking up that fee. It will be on the Clever dashboard, so you don't need to worry about it. It's just not active yet. So that was that.
We had, so parent portal and Aries, that information should be current though right now.
As current as what is available. So for example, since most of you are returning parents, you will know that typically we do all of our handbook forms in the parent portal, you know, just signing off your kids' health stuff and their AUP and all of that kind of stuff. That has not yet been activated. But I would say, you know, do your pre-work now, change your password, get everything updated so that when that is active within the next week or so, you can just fly through all of that, you know, paperwork, digital paperwork.
Digital paperwork. Okay, we had a question about senior pictures, and we have a question about whether fall sports might happen in the spring, if it's possible to.
Yeah, so the pictures, although important, not essential at this time. I feel like I'm having deja vu from the spring, and I know the principals don't even want to talk about this, but you know, it was a difficult time for anyone who did experience that. It was difficult for us to not be able to celebrate our kids, but we knew it was the right thing to do to keep everybody safe. And really glad that we were able to have the virtual graduation given our circumstances right now, and that we didn't plan on something different. And in terms of a senior picture, we are asking that our sites and our vendors work with us. We do hope that they have some creative measures in which to support us during this remote time. We are obligated to keeping our families and students safe, and it is not an essential need at this time, but we hope to accomplish that very soon. And then in terms of athletics, although I may not know exactly the verbiage, and Mr. Hernandez, Dr. Gray, or Mr. Stanley can jump in, but we are hoping, based on the recommendations that we've gotten from CIF, that we would be able to travel through the different sports just in a very compacted version. So we would want to allow our students to participate if and when it's safe to do so, and that they would be able to honor that. But I'm going to let my principals jump in because they're better versed in this than I.
So the fall sports have all been moved to the winter. So boys water polo will be with girls water polo. Football and boys volleyball and girls volleyball will all be, along with cross country, will all be in the winter. And then in the spring, they're combining all the other sports. So you have soccer, basketball, baseball, swimming, and track and field, all in the same season.
And we're going to be playing all those sports at the same time. No, I'm just kidding. So it will be a scheduling masterpiece. I'm going to use a very positive word. It will be a masterpiece. But we know the importance of this to our students as well. Athletes are valuable, and we want to make sure that we can provide that to them as well.
There was a question
selling paper cutouts of you if you would like to buy one for the bleachers.
There was a question about reporting attendance. If a student is ill or going to be missing school, is there some procedure or protocol for calling that in the way there has been?
Can you repeat the question, Susan? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. If a student is ill and going to miss class, or there's something comes up, is there some way to call in an absence in the way that there was before? Is that a thing?
Yes. Same as before. All of our procedures will still be in place. There still will be people to take that information. We do expect that as families that we still support our students in the same way. If they're sick, they're sick. We don't want them going to school, even if it's remote. I absolutely believe that as a mom, you need to take care of the health and welfare of your child, and we are here to support that. And luckily, the way we're doing things right now, our children are going to benefit better than if they had missed it in a regular situation. So please, by all means, still use that. And all of our principals will be providing that information and ways in which they will contact, that you can contact the school site.
Okay. I think I guess the only other question that people may have is when we were talking about the academies and the internships and some of the special things that may be difficult. Are there still going to be an attempts to try to make those kinds of things happen?
Absolutely. Dr. Turley, who heads up our Pathways and Academies, is so inspirational and very creative, and works with all of our principals and our teachers to make sure that, for example, with our internships, we this summer had to really, turn on a dime and figure out how to support these students because it's a part of their graduation. And lo and behold, all of our companies and vendors and people that do this supported us and supported our students. And not everybody is yet equipped to do that, but this life that we are all living right now is providing opportunity that we didn't even know we had. In fact, even thinking about just how our students are engaging in academies, for example, it is really allowing the creativity and the innovation to be a viable opportunity for our students to even think beyond their own means that they had before. I would say the same for our senior defense. That is a graduation requirement. Although we had to suspend service hours for our seniors only, remarkable staff at each one of our high schools, remarkable students, and just what we were able to do. Some of the changes that we made will never go back. It's enhanced the situation and how we do things even better than we had before. But who knew? You took this experience to allow us to grow.
Okay, well, you guys have put in a very long day with us, and we really thank you for your time. Parents, if you have more questions that weren't answered, you can always feel free to email us at info@pennfamilies.org. Oh, we had a last question here. Is community service still a graduation requirement that students, I'm seeing heads nodding. Yes.
Well, it is a graduation requirement. I would say that Dr. Blanco would agree. We all do, and the board supports it. The only reason we, couldn't do it is because we physically couldn't have people go out and do their service. However, I will say, as a mother of 2 Eagle Scouts, we will find ways to figure out how to support our students as graduates so they can do that, because it's very fulfilling. And I will tell you this, if there are any 9th or 10th grade families out there, I highly encourage your student to start their student service hours in their freshman year. Find ways, even if it's 10 hours, even if it's even if it's 15 hours. We just never know what our circumstances are. And there's a lot of different companies out there that are allowing for, or different service providers that are allowing us to do things in a remote setting. So I do encourage you to do that. Make sure you check in with your counselor. We are finding ways in which to support our students so that they can feel fulfilled with these types of requirements. This is really what it's all about. We are building our scholars and allowing them to see their own potential. So we definitely want to support them.
All right. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you again, and we'll call it a day here.
Thank you so much, everybody, for
Thank you very much.
participating. We really appreciate it.